So here we are. We've got this combination of planets that we can use to find people who share this kind of a figure. And we're just looking at stelliums right now, because, well, that seems like a logical place to start if you're looking for that. So in order to really see what the contrasts are, I'm going to clear this. I'm going to go to another feature of this program, which is you can actually look for combinations that you want to see, right? So the other extreme from Sun, Venus, Neptune, I would say is, and I'm using the Sun, I will explain that. So I'm going to look at Sun conjunct Mars and Sun conjunct Saturn. And I'm going to do a search for that. And so we see that this is an even more unusual combination. So it only happened 6 times since 1500. And so it happens on the average like once every century. I have found over the course of looking at lots of births that I am really fond of the late 1800s and early 1900s. And so my first inclination was, oh, I want to look at 1897. So I'm going to pop that up like so. And what I'm going to find is that not only do we have Sun, Mars, Saturn, but we also have Uranus within like 3.5 degrees. So I wasn't really looking for such a large event as that, but that is what I found. And we will go over, well, first of all, I will just show you what you get when you say I want to browse the births around this time. So and what you get is a long list, well, a fairly long list of people who were born between the 20th and the 26th of November in 1897. So this is everybody in Wikipedia who was born during that period. And this is actually, for anybody who's really interested, I have the files of this available for anybody who wants to look closer. But what I have done is I have pulled out several of these folks, actually 4 of them, and this is a kind of unusual thing to have 4 people who are this much of an outsider, this much of a standout, who exemplify this particular combination. So we've got, Mars and Saturn, we got Uranus, the Sun. I am including always because the way I see it, I want to find people who actually kind of identify personally with these planets, these combined, these stelliums. So the Sun seems like a good place to start with that. And so we have what I called, basically we've got, I mean, what would you expect? What would you expect of this combination? My take on it was we're going to see some major badassery, you could say. So this is probably the least familiar. This is one of the least familiar. This man, whose name I will not try to pronounce, Zong, was a rival of Mao Zedong, and he was involved in all sorts of what did they call it? Purges. Possibly influenced by his life in Stalin's Soviet Union, he carried out strict purges to persecute dissidents. Anyway, he was definitely a badass. But somehow he managed to not die in the process of, losing influence over, Mao Zedong, who ended up being the victor. So there's a lot of information here about him. So then we have born on the 23rd November, a German medical doctor and war criminal during World War II. He was a medical superintendent. He performed all sorts of hideous experiments upon his victims, who were prisoners. And I will not go into the gory details, but he did medical experiments in concentration camps. Okay, so, and then we get to the fun guys. Vito Genovese was an Italian-born mobster who rose to power during Prohibition. He was a longtime associate and childhood friend of Lucky Luciano, who we will also hear from. And he, in fact, later on led Luciano's crime family and renamed it to, he was involved in the heroin trade. He was involved in every mafia thing you want to name. During that period, he was on top of it, right? So occupation, crime boss. And then, so he was born on November 21st. Lucky Luciano was born on November 24th. And he might be the most famous name, although, Vito is no straggler. I mean, I think we probably all heard of both of them. But so Luciano, he killed a lot of people. He did a lot of bad things. And, he basically got convicted for running a prostitution racket, even though he did a zillion other things that he should have gone to prison for. Amazingly, neither Luciano or Genovese were murdered by mobsters. I mean, because they were the top, right? So I guess that's that kind of works for them. But so you can, we can look at lots of other people. I mean, there were some other interesting people on the list that that I won't go into right the moment, but the contrast would be we have this unique combination. I mean, this over 600-year period, this is the only time that these four planets got together like this, at least within I mean, it's certainly a close range. And so this is really all we have to go on. As astrologers, we have to make use of what we got. This is a total outlier among planetary configurations, and I would argue that these people who are also kind of total outliers from the general population, they pretty well exemplify their planets. Even though they have other things going on in their charts are dominated by these stelliums. So I've been doing a lot of looking at charts, looking at individual charts, and looking at counterparts, pairs of charts. And now I'm getting to the point where I'm looking at groups of charts that share the same combination, and I think that's as close as I'm planning to get, at least as far as I can see right now, to trying to make some sort of science out of this. It's to me, this is probably the single most compelling example that I have seen in my time in looking at this sort of thing over several years. And so I think it's worth presenting, and so that's what I'm doing.